There is a moment just before reality breaks, a moment where everything looks normal. The world is quiet, stable, familiar. Then, without warning, something fundamental disappears. No explosion is heard, no impact is felt. No visible force is seen. But the Earth changes anyway. Now imagine this, you wake up in the middle of the night. Something feels wrong, not loud, not obvious, but deep, like a missing heartbeat in the planet itself. You step outside. The air is still, too still. You walk toward the coast because something inside you tells you to check, and then you see it. Where the ocean should be, there is nothing. No waves, no water, no horizon of blue stretching into infinity. Only a vast, exposed wound in the surface of the Earth. Ships are frozen in place, dropped into empty basins. Harbors collapse into silent valleys. Entire coastlines now hang over impossible cliffs. And in that moment, your brain refuses to accept what your eyes are seeing, because the oceans did not move. They did not retreat. They are gone, completely. And the Earth has just entered a new state of existence. Tonight, we explore a scenario so extreme that it rewrites the rules of survival itself. What if the oceans completely disappeared overnight? Introduction. The planet that lost its blue heart. To understand what has happened, we must first understand what has been lost. The oceans are not simply water. They are a system, a mechanism, a planetary engine that regulates everything from weather to temperature to life itself. Covering more than 70% of Earth's surface, the oceans are the largest active component of the biosphere. They store heat, they move energy, they generate storms, they feed clouds. They sustain ecosystems that stretch from microscopic plankton to the largest creatures ever to exist. Every breath of oxygen you take is tied to them. Every season you experience is shaped by them. Every drop of rain begins there. So when they disappear, we are not witnessing the loss of a feature. We are witnessing the collapse of a system that holds the entire planet together. And the most terrifying part is this: Earth does not stop functioning slowly. It begins to fail immediately. The moment of disappearance, let us return to the exact moment it happens. Midnight across the planet. Ships are moving through deep water. Marine life is active in vast, unseen ecosystems. Ocean currents flow as they have for millions of years. Then, in less than a second, everything vanishes. There is no splash. Because there is nothing left to splash into. Massive cargo ships that were floating moments ago suddenly fall hundreds, even thousands of meters into empty ocean basins. The impact is catastrophic. Steel breaks, structures collapse. Submarine environments, once under immense pressure, are instantly exposed to air and gravity they were never designed to survive. But the real disaster is not visible. It is biological. Every marine organism, billions upon billions of life forms, is exposed instantly to an environment that kills them within minutes. The oceans do not drain. They erase. And Earth's largest habitat becomes a dead zone in seconds. The revealed planet, Earth without water cover for the first time in human history, the ocean floor is exposed. And it is not what most people imagine. The deep sea is not flat. It is not empty. It is a hidden world of extremes. Mountain ranges larger than any on land stretch across continents. Rift valleys split the crust of the Earth. Volcanic ridges run for thousands of kilometers. Trenches descend deeper than Everest is tall. The Mariana Trench becomes a massive scar in the planet's surface. So deep that if Mount Everest were placed inside it, its peak would still be far below sea level, if sea level still existed. Now imagine standing at the edge of one of these trenches. There is no water, only air and a drop so vast it distorts perception itself. Coastlines are no longer coastlines, they are cliffs. Ports are no longer ports. They are broken industrial ruins hanging above empty planetary basins. Entire nations have changed shape overnight. The map of Earth has been rewritten, but geography is only the beginning, because now the atmosphere begins to react. The collapse of the climate system, the oceans are not passive. They are active regulators of Earth's climate. They absorb sunlight during the day and release heat at night. They move warm water from the equator toward the poles. They stabilize temperature differences across the globe. Without them, that balance disappears instantly. Within hours, temperature swings begin. Coastal regions experience extreme heat during the day and rapid cooling at night. Weather systems that depend on evaporation begin to weaken. But the most important change is invisible. The engine of weather has stopped. No more evaporation from the sea, no more cloud formation on a global scale. No more storms forming over warm water. The atmosphere begins to lose its structure. Cloud systems thin out. Humidity collapses, rainfall begins to fail. At first it seems like a drought, but it is not a drought. It is the beginning of atmospheric breakdown. The death of the water cycle. The water cycle is one of the most fundamental systems on Earth. It begins with the oceans. Water evaporates, clouds form, rain falls, rivers flow, life continues. But remove the oceans and the cycle collapses at its source. Evaporation drops drastically, cloud formation weakens, rain becomes rare, then unpredictable, then nearly non-existent. Within weeks, freshwater systems begin to fail. Rivers that once carved continents slow to a trickle. Lakes shrink under relentless evaporation. Soil dries and loses its ability to support life. Agriculture begins to collapse not because of disaster, but because of absence. Absence of rain, absence of moisture, absence of renewal. The planet begins to dry from the inside out. The first great collapse, ecosystems. Plants are the first major victims. Without consistent water supply, they begin to fail. Grasslands turn brittle and brown. Forests lose their canopy. Trees begin to die in waves rather than individually. And once plants begin to collapse, everything else follows. Herbivores lose their food source. They migrate until there is nowhere left to go. Then they starve. Predators follow. Entire ecosystems unravel not in chaos but in sequence. First vegetation, then herbivores, then predators, then scavengers. The silence spreads across continents. Forests that once vibrated with life become still. Rivers that once supported migration routes become dry channels. Earth begins to resemble a planet that is not dying violently, but quietly shutting down. Humanity faces the edge of system failure. Human civilization is built on stability. Stability of climate, stability of food, stability of water. The disappearance of the oceans removes all three. At first, coastal cities are hit hardest. Ports collapse as trade routes become meaningless. Fishing industries disappear instantly. Saltwater ecosystems vanish completely. Then inland regions begin to feel the effects. Food production declines as rainfall becomes unreliable. Reservoirs fail to replenish. Groundwater becomes the final fragile lifeline. Governments attempt emergency responses. But there is no system large enough to replace the oceans, because the oceans are not infrastructure. They are the foundation of infrastructure. Within months, global trade slows to fragmentation. Mass migration begins toward remaining water sources. Agricultural collapse spreads across continents. Energy systems begin to fail as cooling processes break down. And civilization begins to fracture into isolated survival zones. Not because of war, but because the systems that connect humanity no longer function. The exposure of a new desert world. As time passes, the exposed ocean floor begins to transform. Without water, salt deposits crystallize under extreme temperature shifts. Sediment layers dry into fine, unstable dust. Mineral formations that were once underwater structures become exposed terrain. And then the wind begins to reshape everything. Storm systems still exist, but now they carry something new. Toxic dust from ancient seabeds, salt particles capable of destroying crops. Microscopic remnants of marine chemistry now turned airborne. Entire regions become uninhabitable not because of heat or cold, but because of the air itself. The ocean floor becomes a planetary desert. But unlike any desert on Earth today, this one is chemically active, unstable, expanding, and spreading across continents. The atmosphere begins to weaken. One of the least understood consequences of ocean loss is oxygen production collapse. A significant portion of Earth's oxygen is produced not by forests, but by microscopic marine life. Phytoplankton. When oceans disappear, this production system collapses almost instantly. At first, the atmosphere does not change noticeably. But over time, oxygen levels begin to decline, not sharply, but steadily. Breathing becomes slightly more difficult in polluted regions. High-altitude zones become more dangerous. Fire behavior changes as oxygen distribution becomes uneven. This is not immediate suffocation. It is slow atmospheric degradation, a weakening of the very air that sustains complex life. Earth enters a state of extreme temperature violence. Without oceans, Earth loses its largest heat regulator. This creates permanent extremes. Equatorial regions become dangerously hot during the day. Polar regions lose heat retention and become even colder. Mid-latitude zones experience violent oscillations. Day and night no longer feel like parts of a cycle. They feel like different worlds entirely. Earth becomes divided into unstable climate bands, burn zones, freeze zones, collapse zones, and between them, narrow regions where temporary survival is still possible. But even those regions are unstable, because without oceans, there is nothing to stabilize the system long-term. Cause and effect. The planetary cascade, the chain reaction is now complete. Oceans disappear. Marine ecosystems collapse. Water cycle fails. Rainfall stops. Vegetation dies. Food chains collapse. Civilization destabilizes. Atmosphere weakens. Temperature extremes intensify. Dust storms spread toxic residues. Oxygen production declines. Planetary habitability collapses. Each step accelerates the next. This is not a disaster. It is a system-wide failure. A planetary engine shutting down in sequence. What Earth becomes after years, Earth still exists. But it is no longer the same planet. Continents remain, but reshaped. Cities remain, but abandoned or buried. Humanity may survive in fragments, but not as a unified civilization. And the ocean basins, once the birthplace of life, climate, and stability, remain as silent scars across the planet. A reminder of what held everything together, and what happens when it is gone. Conclusion. The lesson of the blue planet, the oceans, are not just water. They are Earth's memory system, its cooling system, its breathing system, its life support system. Remove them and the planet does not simply change. It unravels, slowly at first. Then completely. This scenario is not a prediction. It is a demonstration of dependency. A reminder that Earth is not strong because it is indestructible. It is stable because everything is connected. And the oceans are the connection point of nearly every system that allows life to exist. Final question: we often think of oceans as distant, vast, separate from our daily lives. But in reality, they are the invisible architecture holding everything together. So the question is not just what would happen if they disappeared. The real question is this: if something so massive, so essential, so permanent in appearance, could vanish in an instant, what other systems of our world are we trusting, without fully understanding what holds them in place? And what happens when the next one breaks?